Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 25th of March, comes to you from Mauritius. And I'm actually here on holiday at the moment, but still managing to take a quick look at the markets. And we saw the US was down quite heavily on Friday, S&P down nearly 2%. And consequently, we're seeing stocks falling in Europe and Asia. And so, interestingly, we're seeing sort of global growth fears coming back and worrying the market. Dollar rising at the end of last week, and so still in bullish territory now on all three charts. The outlook for the dollar is increasingly looking pretty strong. And Eurodollar consequently falling at the end of last week, which is put in bearish territory. Japanese yen, we're seeing the dollar is actually weaker here, the yen being a safe haven when we've got these sort of global growth fears going on. Sterling also falling back as well, but just maintaining the 130 level, but still short-term bearish against the US dollar. And against the euro, now we're seeing sterling actually looking quite a lot better on all three time frames. So the euro is actually suffering. And Swiss franc, we're seeing sterling is still bearish, but holding around that 130 mark as well. Looking at Bitcoin, not much change here in the last few days, still looking long-term very weak. The S&P 500, the chart hasn't changed that dramatically. We saw the 2% fall away on Friday, still short-term upside. We've got a new downside target that has been activated 3% lower, so that is now just hanging over us a little bit on the short term. The Nasdaq also fell back on Friday, and the Dow Jones index was back 1.7% as well. The Russell 2000, the broader base index, falling quite heavily. We're seeing a lot of US stocks falling away heavily, sort of the smaller caps being hit harder. The futures this morning, we've got the S&P future down 0.25%, the Nasdaq E-mini down 0.5%. So it does suggest the US market is going to open even lower today. The UK market down 0.5% already, the top 100, and that's starting to push this under, take some pressure on the short-term chart, so we might see a fall away there. The mid caps also falling 0.6% and taking out the low that we saw earlier in the month. So again, this is starting to look quite worrying. The DAX is looking pretty bearish on the short-term chart, but this morning just holding up. Weaker euro probably helping, and the CAC Quarant off 0.33%, so not great there. Japan was down 2.5%, and so we're bearish short-term there. And the Hang Seng was down 2%, and the Chinese Shanghai index down just under 2%. So it will be interesting to see how this pattern develops, having run up here. Is this a consolidation, and will we go higher, or is this global stocks going to hit? And we're just finding this resistance here. The fact that we've unwound some downside targets and we've got a new upside target not yet activated though is what we need to watch for China. The Sensex down 1.16%, so relatively resilient there, and the Aussie market down 1.1%, again relatively resilient. The growth fears hitting commodities as well. Brent Crude is in short-term bearish territory, and WTI also in short-term bearish territory. US nat gas sitting at $2.73, so that's not looking great either. Short-term, medium, and long-term all bearish. Gold is sitting at 13.17 this morning, so the 13.20 made last week. We're seeing here coming back to have another go at that level. So we are seeing gold recovering from the sell-off that we saw at the start of March. And silver, we see also back into bullish territory on the short-term chart. US 10-year yields got as low as 2.45% last week and stuck below 2.5%. And German bonds, the price is rising as bond yields tending to zero or negative. This data coming to you from Thomson Reuters Icon. If I go through to look at the stocks, here I'm using Yahoo Finance. This is the world indices. You can grab this from the quotes watch list library if you're using Updata, so you can just follow me and you can grab all of these same watch lists that I'm using. But we see here that we had the Nasdaq 100 down 2.23%. Quite a lot of these just a sea of red in Asia, so the sell-off really affecting global stocks there. The Dow in we had some really big falls on Friday. We had Nike down 6.6%. That's not unwound the trend, but a very big fall nonetheless. And Dow DuPont down 3.6%. So we saw only 4 stocks up on Friday. Verizon leading up 1.47%. Looking at the Nasdaq, we can see here again there were only 4 stocks in the 100 that were up. PepsiCo was the leader, and we had quite a handful of stocks here down 5-6% as well. So across the board, we're seeing quite big moves there. In Oz overnight, we saw the worst performer was Eclipse Group down 12%. That's looking just dire as a chart. And if we look at the upside, we had Newcrest Mining up 3%, so they're looking much better, breaking to new highs, so that's looking quite strong. China, if we look at the Chinese market, we see that there were only 3 stocks up, and in India, on the Nifty 50, it was fared better. We had Z Entertainment there down 4%, and if we look at the upside, we had Indian Oil Corporation. They were up 3.4%. Still seeing some live pricing just coming in here from Yahoo Finance now. Last of all, we'll take a look at Europe, and if we see here in Europe, we can just collapse that menu away. Best performer in the UK this morning, Standard Chartered up 0.4%, EasyJet, HSBC, the bank's faring quite well there, but the chart's not looking great. On the downside, the worst performer, Ashtead Group down 2.5%, DS Smith down 2.4%, Smiths Group down 2.34%. So we're seeing some pretty big falls on a lot of these stocks. In the 250, the mid caps in the UK, Inmarsat up another 8%, with the potential of their being bid for. That's really just changed the whole picture of this chart, of course. Domino's Pizza very strong, up 4%. So that's starting to look quite good, although the chart has actually been pretty bearish for a while. And if we look at the downside, we've got Softfast Group down 5.7%, so not looking great there. Across in Europe, in continental Europe, we've got Fresenius is the best performer in Germany. They're up 2.5%. That's helping the DAX performance. Adidas also up. Daimler also up. So we're seeing German stocks doing relatively well in a global rout at the moment. Bayer down further with their woes in the US and breaking to new lows this morning. That was the big week fall last week, and now we're making new lows. That's very bad news for Bayer. We've got downside targets here, 7 and 12% lower, 15% lower on this chart. So already underperforming the market by 13% so far this year, and not looking to get much better. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.